It was a story that headlined our evening newscast for weeks in 2007. An 18-year-old Paige accused then Democratic State Senator Dan Sutton of molesting him.
At the time, the Senate held hearings and voted to formally reprimand Sutton, but he was not kicked out of office and never criminally charged.
Tonight, Dan Sutton took office as the mayor of Flandreau, but along with his new position have come some new accusations of sexual abuse, which allegedly occurred more than 2 decades ago.
In tonight's Kettleland News investigation, Angela Kennecke sits down with the man who says Sutton groomed him and then sexually abused him while he was a teenager in Flandreau. We want to warn you that some of the accusations are graphic in nature.
People are like, well, why is he coming out with it now? Why is he coming out with it now?
Nate Lalonde describes himself as a difficult kid in high school who craved the attention he got from his drumline instructor and substitute teacher, Dan Sutton.
Sometimes he'd write me hall passes and come get me out of class so I could just go hang out with him.
I'm grateful for my family and friends.
Lalonde says Sutton gave him a key to his house, allowed him to drink alcohol out of the fridge, and kept a stocked candy drawer. He says he ended up living with Sutton for a time in his early teens.
Dan gave me some sort of attention that I didn't get anywhere else, so I felt like he actually cared about me. And then when this stuff started to happen, I just thought that, you know, this is my price to pay for having to be that way. I blame myself.
Lalonde described the abuse he says he endured while staying in Sutton's home.
Many times, I guess, at night I'd wake up and he'd be obviously over top of me and his hands would be down my pants, touching my genitals.
Lalonde's accusations are similar to those made by legislative page Austin Weiss in 2006, who shared a hotel room with Sutton in Pierre.
And he proceeded to move his hand down.
Okay, where did he put his hand?
And he placed his hand on my penis.
Did you do it?
I did not do what Austin is claiming. I did nothing. I have too much to risk with my career.
We wanted to ask Flandreau's mayor-elect about the new allegations leveled against him by Lalonde.
Is Dan Sutton here? No, he's not.
Following our attempts to track Sutton down in Flandreau, his longtime attorney, who represented him during the legislative hearings and a subsequent civil lawsuit, agreed to address the claims.
Why isn't Dan Sutton talking to me today?
Why isn't he talking? Why would anyone want to sit here and endure further humiliation? I think anybody would sit here and allow those kind of questions to be asked of them after they've been exonerated, cleared, and never charged would just have to be love punishment.
But there's a difference between not being charged and exonerated. He still was censured.
I consider it being exonerated because at that time the investigation, as you recall, was extremely public.
While the Senate conducted its hearing, Attorney General Larry Long was considering potential criminal charges, but ultimately decided there wasn't enough evidence to charge Sutton. During that time, Lalonde was interviewed by the Division of Criminal Investigation.
The DCI did talk to you. What did you tell them at the time?
You know, I wasn't ready to talk about what happened to me. I covered for him, which I never should have done.
DCI reports are not public record. However, as Sutton's attorney, Butler has a copy of what Lalonde told investigators at the time. Butler tells Kettleland Investigates he can't legally allow us to see the report, but he did read a portion of it out loud.
At no time did Lalonde ever recall Sutton groping him or touching him under his clothing or touching his penis. Lalonde could not indicate any skin-to-skin contact. At no time did Sutton ever requested him to have sex or proposition him. In this report, he also indicates he thought he may have dreamt some things up.
Lalonde says instead of facing the truth, he went into the military and turned to drugs and alcohol.
You try to bury that so deep to where you'll never even think about it at all.
Now, if his story has changed 14 years later, so when was he lying? Lying then or lying now?
I didn't do the right thing back there and more people got hurt, and that bothers me to this day.
Following Sutton's 2007 censure, Austin Weiss filed a civil lawsuit against Sutton. It was settled in 2010 and dismissed with prejudice. One of the stipulations for dismissal was a statement from Sutton to Weiss. Mr. Weiss, I apologize for any problems, discomfort, embarrassment this has caused you. Dan Sutton.
Is Dan Sutton a pedophile?
No.
When he decided to run for mayor, that's when I decided I should act, just because I didn't want anyone else to get hurt by him. I don't want any more kids, young men, to get molested by him, to grow up with the same problems I have and Austin has and Brandon has.
Brandon is Brandon Carr, who was on the list to testify against Sutton at the 2007 legislative hearing, but was never called. Carr claims he was molested by Sutton on a band trip in high school. I spoke with both Carr and Weiss on the phone and by email for this story. They both now live out of state. Both men told me what happened to them is too painful of a wound to open up by doing on-camera interviews. But they want to support Lalonde and believe his claims. Lalonde has started a Facebook support group for victims of sexual abuse.
Now, we've gone through our news archives and have a recap of the 2007 State Senate hearing and the censure of Dan Sutton. You can find that story on KELOLAND.com.